Hi guys, my name's Josh, and today I want to talk about a bit of a specific subject on independent artists. Now, I've been doing some research for my final year dissertation, and my final year dissertation is titled How Viable is an Independent Career in the Music Industry? And basically I'm looking to see if independent musicians are earning at least UK living wage, and if they're not, what can be done about that? So throughout the duration of conducting this research, I've had a tremendous amount of response. So if you have filled in one of my surveys, please, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that kind of stuff. But I've had a lot of responses and a lot of different opinions along a big wide spectrum about this subject. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about it and delve into some of the topics and issues around independent musicians getting paid for their work. Now, a lot of the time, the money side of things in music can be seen as quite a taboo subject, and I found a lot of musicians not really wanting to talk about this kind of thing, and I totally respect that. In many other different industries and careers and avenues, money is a very private subject. But isn't making music the dream? Isn't making music for a living the dream that you want to achieve? And if that's so, then we do need to have this conversation about the money. And I feel that we all need to be a little bit more open about how musicians can earn revenue from their work. Now, firstly, one of the biggest issues I think which comes up when concerning musicians getting paid for their work, and not just independent musicians, is the quality of their music. And it's a bit of a difficult one because obviously music is really subjective and everybody has a different opinion on what makes good music. But in terms of other things to do with quality, such as production quality, I do think that you do need to have a very good or decently leveled quality product in terms of production to be able to sell to your audience, because your audience shouldn't be expected to pay for something which is of subpar quality. And again, I'm not talking about the goodness or the quality of the music in general, but more the production quality and the techniques which musicians and producers use to make their music industry standard. So that's one of the first things that I think we should highlight when talking about musicians getting paid for their music. If you want to sell your music to an audience, you need to make sure that it is of a decent enough quality in terms of production that your audience actually want to buy your music. And I don't think that it's fair to say to your audience to charge them for your music when it doesn't have a certain degree of production quality. Now, the second point that I want to raise is quite a big one, and it's to do with the income streams of musicians. Now, musicians' careers are to be considered as a portfolio career, and what that means is that you will have multiple income streams to create that one living wage. And over the duration of your music career, you should be looking to set up these income streams so that you can have multiple levels of income coming in which form that final living wage. And this also helps when one of these income streams falls through because you've got other ones set up. And if you were, say, getting hired by someone and you were being paid a wage, that is quite risky in terms of you losing your job and completely losing your household income altogether. So it's very beneficial that independent musicians should seek out these portfolio careers. However, one big issue with this is that lots of musicians might not know how to set up these income streams when it comes to a lot of the music business knowledge. Now, these income streams vary from different types of avenues such as streaming, which I will get onto, and merchandise, and even things like Patreon. Patreon is a service which helps creatives and different projects receive funding from their audiences for this. And there's actually a fellow who I spoke to called Matt Jones who created a very cool video on this, and I'll link his video right here. In Matt's video, he talks about how Patreon can be broken down into different tiers and how musicians can use this to fund their creative projects, and he does this in a very good, comprehensive fashion. So if you're looking for creative backing from your artist and in a way where you can reward your audience for helping you to create your music, do go and check out his video and check out Patreon as another form of income for your music. Now, as I mentioned, musicians sometimes struggle with setting up these income streams because they might not have the knowledge of how to do so. That's one of the reasons why we exist, to try and help you guys get on with the music business stuff, so we can teach you and you can learn how to set up stuff like different income streams. But there are a number of income streams, from streaming to merchandise, Patreon, and then also publishing, which can be quite a difficult one sometimes, and a whole other plethora of income streams which musicians should be looking to set up to help develop their careers and support themselves financially. Now, one of the larger issues which cropped up when I was conducting this research is the fact that musicians aren't entitled to a living wage, and I agree with that. Nobody is entitled to anything in this world, and what that means is you need to work hard and graft at your craft. You need to be grafting to hone your craft and make your music the best possible product you can to be able to sell it to your audience and your fans. And what this means is that you become self-employed. And along with the self-employment title comes a different type of roles and responsibilities when compared to a more traditional employment route. Now, as musicians, you don't just clock into a factory and get paid a wage at the end of the day. This is a very special type of career path, which you guys very much know. And it's a very special type of career path because it takes a long time to get to the point where you could perhaps earn a living from your music. But that's the point here. Independent careers are a long-term option in music. And what that means is that you need to spend the time grafting at your craft and spend the time to develop these income streams, like I've said, to be able to earn a living wage. And then once you are earning over £1,000 per annum or per year, you need to register with the HMRC in the UK to be able to start paying tax on that. Otherwise, you could be in trouble with the taxman. But one big benefit to this long-term career is that it can be much more rewarding than any other traditional career in any other industry. You are building yourself a lifetime brand here that will be able to support you long after you've passed away. You could support your family for decades to come if you set something like this up. And as well as being able to live a very comfortable and very somewhat wealthy life from this music brand. There are no other careers like this in the world. And that's what makes independent musicians so very special. So let's talk a little bit more about those roles and responsibilities in terms of being self-employed. As a self-employed worker, it is your right to be able to choose when you work, how much you get paid for that work, and the parameters and circumstances behind you generating the revenue for your music career. That's one of the big benefits of this. However, it's also your responsibility to begin paying tax once you earn more than £1,000 per year. And this is where in the music industry things get a little bit hazy, because lots of cash just gets delivered cash in hand in this industry, and many musicians and music industry professionals don't want to pay tax on their services. And this is the whole stick it to the man attitude that came from rock and roll. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that there's a problem with that, because if a musician can't earn a living wage in the first place, I don't think that they should be having to pay tax, because they need to get to a point where they're earning £1,000 per year. And that can be quite a difficult road to go down, but it is doable with help from people like us, and you can help eventually develop a career in music where you can pay tax, receive the benefits of, say, the musicians union, which uphold your rights as a self-employed musician. And in terms of issues with coronavirus, a lot of musicians seem to have fell through the cracks during this time, and that's because they weren't paying tax, or it's one of the reasons why. Because they weren't supporting the system or the government which they are under, the UK government, they weren't entitled to any support from the UK government during this time, and that's quite a controversial subject. I know it's very wrong that musicians haven't been supported, but one of the reasons why is because they haven't been paying into the system, which would then support them come such a crisis like coronavirus. So just to summarise that, because I know tax and revenue and money can get quite confusing, you aren't quite entitled to any living wage as a musician unless you've worked your ass off for it. You are entitled to a living wage if you've worked hard, set up your income streams, and are still finding it hard to earn a living wage. But as a musician starting out, you're not quite entitled to anything until you've worked your ass off to get a music career in the music industry. And you should always be aware of your rights as a self-employed individual. Check out the Musicians Union and see how, in which ways they can support you as a worker and support your workers' rights in their Musicians Union. And one of the last big points in the issue surrounding independent musicians being paid for their work is streaming. Now, we made a video on streaming last week. If you want to check that out, I'll link it up here if I can. But I do want to just touch on this subject again because it is quite an important one and it's being debated quite heavily in the music community right now. So, as I mentioned in our past video last week, I mentioned how streaming can be quite profitable for the artists who have already developed a career, developed a brand, and have brand awareness to be able to promote that to their audience. In terms of being paid 0.0028 of a pence per stream, if you are, say, Ed Sheeran, you can generate quite a good amount of revenue from the music because Ed Sheeran has an established brand. Now, the issue for independent artists is when artists are trying to break into the industry, that 0.0028 of a pence means that their music is generating next to nothing. And when you compare one stream to one sale of a music, that is incomparable. You are earning far less per stream than you are earning per sale, which is where the problem lies. And this is a big issue for artists breaking into the industry, trying to gain revenue, trying to put more hours and work into their music career. If they're not earning a fair wage from streaming, which is only one of these income streams, by the way, then that's where we have a problem with the sustainability of streaming. And as I said in the video, the UK government is actually investigating the sustainability of streaming on the wider music industry right now. And hopefully, what I'd like to see from that debate is more regulations put on these big tech companies such as Spotify, which will make them have to pay artists a fair wage per stream. Now, I don't necessarily believe that it should perhaps be £1 per stream because that would see these big tech companies go out of pocket very fast. And Spotify, for all their controversies, has been a very good company in defending some of artists' rights in terms of piracy. They were the ones who kind of came about and said, no, piracy is, well, everybody said piracy was wrong, but Spotify came about and said piracy was wrong, and they kind of diminished Napster in the fact that online file sharing for free was wrong. They came about and charged artists 0.0028 of a pence per stream for their music, which was better than being paid nothing at all. Now, that's a big debate in itself, and I might make another video on that anyway. Now, one of the wider issues I see with these big tech companies such as Spotify is the fact that their service is built way more for the benefit of the consumer than it is the creator, and that's a real big issue considering if they didn't have music on their platform, if musicians didn't exist, they wouldn't have a business. They actually owe a hell of a lot to the musicians, not just financially, but also in the fact that if musicians didn't exist, Spotify wouldn't have a business, they wouldn't have any profits, and we wouldn't have a music industry. So why is it that their service seems to benefit the consumer over the creator? Now, that is basically why music is free nowadays. You can go on Spotify, get a free account, and listen to music with ads. And the artist, again, gets next to nothing for that. Why is that so? And that's probably my main point personally I have on streaming. Why do these services benefit the consumer over the creator when if the creator didn't exist, there wouldn't be a market for the consumer anyway? So that is mainly all of the issues surrounding whether or not independent artists should get paid for their work. And in my answer to that, I do think independent artists should get paid for their work and they should be able to earn at least a living wage from their work anyway. So if you'd like to help out with the research that I'm currently conducting for my final year dissertation, I'll leave a link down below to the survey. By all means, you don't have to get involved, but if you feel strongly about this and you'd like to get paid for your work as an independent musician, this could help in providing research for all of the music community to do so. There's also an interview opportunity there, but that's also not necessary too. But yeah, if you wanted to check out my research, it'll be in the description below, and I thank you very much if you do so. Lastly, I'd just like to say, go and check out our streaming vid because it covers a little bit more about the issues surrounding streaming specifically. And if you did enjoy today's video, please drop us a like and drop us a subscribe because we've got lots more music discussions just like this one. You could also hit that notification bell to get a notification whenever we upload some new content. But until then, I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.